You know, out of everything that I learned from this episode, I really need to get into Foxy Shazam because that whole band's vibe was very much my thing. I'm down. Hello, interwebs. I hope you are all doing well because I am here to review the season finale of Season 2 of Peacemaker, Full Nelson. And we're going to go full spoilers on this one, so make sure you check out the episode before you watch this one. I had a few comments last week about that, so I just want to make sure very clear. I do some spoiler-free stuff with my Star Trek reviews, but for other shows, I generally try to keep it full spoilers, though I get more into spoilers as I go, but I don't have like a clear demarcation point. So just want to make that clear to everyone who happens to jump in on these reviews. So getting into this one, I have really mixed feelings on this episode as a whole because there's a part of me that really loves a lot of what this episode does, most specifically on a character level, for all of our characters that we've been following, but specifically Chris, I think, has some really, really great moments, as does Adebayo, but we'll talk about her in just a second. But on the other hand, on a plot level, this just feels like the rest of the season, which is really good ideas, but not given enough time to be fully fleshed out, and as a result, just sort of feels like, man, I wish we could have dug more in here because a lot of this feels either too fast or we're just skimming the surface of some really great ideas, and it leaves me kind of frustrated on a plot level. So between those two feelings of like, wow, this is really great character stuff. This is like, you know, James Gunn working at his peak character level, which is something he's always been really good at. And then on the other hand, me being like, what the hell is this plot? It's not bad, but like there's so much more here that we're just zooming by. And it just creates a weirdly frustrating experience, especially as this episode is clearly setting up for future things, both in the DC universe, either going into Man of Tomorrow, or for future Peacemaker seasons, or whatever Peacemaker may turn into, given where this episode ultimately ends, because it seems like we might not be setting up a Peacemaker Season 3, but a whole new show altogether that will include Peacemaker, which I'd be fine for either way. But let me dive into some specifics here. Like I said, to start with the positive, really love Chris's arc throughout this because we are building off of that moment last episode where we see that he broke, that he feels that he is, as he says in this episode, the angel of death, that everything he touches turns to shit, and that he is fundamentally just not even like a broken person, because that's kind of what he was dealing with in season 1, but I think ultimately just a cursed person, that there's nothing good that he can contribute to the universe, and he would rather just disappear and go away. And you know, I think that's a really good arc for his character to have gone on this season because, you know, you see at the beginning of the season, he was someone who like, all right, I'm working on my shit. I feel like I'm a better person. And yet the world just does not seem to want him. And everything around him just is really, really difficult and not just giving him that chance to show that he's a good person. No one believes in him. And ultimately, he's only just around these situations that just are really fucking horrible. And he tries to sort of like run away from this world that doesn't want him. And it leaves him hurting others. And so this feeling of like, I just don't want to exist anymore because even at my best self, no one seems to want me. No one, even Harcourt doesn't seem to want me. And I loved that opening sequence and then the return to the boat that we get to see later. And clearly James Gunn just wants to film a bunch of rock concerts throughout this season. He just wanted an excuse to film a bunch of rock concerts with his favorite bands, which, you know, if you're at that level in your career where you can be like, hey, I love this band, let's just film them for an episode and let's do it twice. You know, I don't begrudge him. It's a sense of identity. It was a little repetitive because we did it twice in this episode with two different bands, to be fair, but still very similar vibes in terms of the visuals. But I at least appreciate there's an identity that James Gunn's bringing to this. But I love that sequence because you can see that there's that connection and they perform it so well. And I love that like moment at the door where like you see that Peacemaker Chris brings out the best in Harcourt of like, look, I'm not trying to defend you. That guy, you would have fucked that guy up, but like, you don't have to focus on that. Let's focus on this good thing. Like, he actually does bring out the best in people around him, and yet because of where she's at, she just can't handle that herself, and he kind of puts it on himself. It's like, oh, I'm the problem. And finally getting that confirmation at the end of the episode where she says, no, it meant everything to me. It's like, oh, we're still both working through shit, and like, I'm okay. Like, I'm I'm valued. And there was that beautiful scene. I love Adebayo's message to Chris of like, all the times that people have gotten hurt around you is because you were following something else, these systems, these people that were telling you to be something that you were running away from in yourself. And when you are yourself, you are good. And that I just love that this is the thing that James Gunn has sort of like drilled down on as a theme in a lot of his work. It was in Superman as well, and it's been in a lot of his other stuff of like, stop running from yourself, be who you are, fuck the system. And as a trans person, I can get with that. And I think that's just the theme of this whole season of like, you know, chase yourself, fuck these systems. It even came up in the Earth X, Nazi planet a little bit as well. And so like, you don't have to sort of like give yourself to these systems, that will demand everything of you. Which brings me over, and I want to touch upon some of the other character stuff in a little bit because there's some good stuff there, but I want to touch back on the plot stuff, which brings me over to the Argus things. Now, obviously, there's a lot of fun going on here with the Argus exploring the other dimension and looking at the other planets. The like candy cane dimension was really funny with the little gremlins and all of that stuff. And I like what this was ultimately trying to do, right? We got this sense that like Argus and Rick Flag Sr. is now just like doing the bidding of a billionaire, sending people out to die with no real care for their safety and just getting what he wants because he's out for some revenge mission against metahumans. I like that as an idea, and it kind of comes out in Harcourt being like, oh, fuck these systems, fuck the government, you know, and that's a message that feels very, very relevant right now. Down to the point of like, they literally at the end of the episode, Rick Flag grabs Chris off the street and shoves him in a prison somewhere without his permission, telling nobody where he is. Feels very fucking relevant to what's happening with ICE right now. So very, very true. I am here for the fuck the American system, how they don't care for people. They do the bidding of tech billionaires like Lex Luthor or Elon Musk, and they're doing it by taking away citizens' rights and doing their own sort of petty, you know, macho bro bullshit and hanging out like Rick Flag just snorting cocaine. Well, the other people snorting cocaine, but Rick Flag just hanging out with his tech bro boys that he's getting all these adulations from. And just, again, being at the beck and call of Lex Luthor. So thematically, I really, really like that. But it feels like, again, that is a concept that really we could have had so much more time with. And again, we've gotten pieces of it here, like Rick Flag like beating up Peacemaker and saying like, oh, it's for a bigger reason, and it's really just him just venting his own bullshit out of Peacemaker, you know, that he's dealing with, like Peacemaker having killed his son, but he's doing it in a very personal way that's like removing Chris's, you know, rights as a citizen, as an American, as a person, as a human being. So like we've gotten that arc here, but it just kind of jumps too quickly of like, okay, we were just in Nazi planet, now we're back here doing this thing, and it feels like there's a jump from Rick Flag, and they even kind of call it out in the episode of like, you've gone from someone to being like, fuck Lex Luthor, you know, we're standing by metahumans like Superman, he seems like a good guy, to like, now he's just like, chilling with the bros, Lex Luthor's bros. It just feels like, again, there's an arc there that I can buy, but it just feels like too much with this character. Like, it's hard to track Rick Flag's character arc because, you know, again, I like where they go with him thematically, and even like, yeah, I believe you could get this character there, but like, it's so weird to watch his arc from like Creature Commando to Superman to like the beginning of this season, and then dealing with his son's death that like comes back up, and then like going to like, I'm gonna work for like the arc for, like, I just don't believe this character's like the same character, especially compared to the Creature Commando character, in a lot of ways. And again, I could buy it. It's not like it's so ridiculous, like I can't see the connections, but like there's just missing pieces here, and it just left me a little bit like, what? It just feels like we needed more. And it's the same thing that I had with last episode with the Nazi planet, in that like there's a lot of really good ideas here, but I wanted more. We could have stayed here more, because you're at least like giving like you're touching upon ideas of like, yes, this Nazi world is built on like dehumanization and killing people. We don't see it, and we're just kind of touching upon it. We're skimming the surface, and like there's not enough like strong connection made in the theme stuff, because there's themes that are overlapping here. right? Like I just sort of mentioned, like be yourself, don't like acquiesce to systems. And like this whole idea that, you know, you got Augie last episode having this whole speech about like, do you ever fight every injustice that you do? I just focus on what I can do. And then we get something more here with Harcourt kind of even going a little bit further than that, saying, hey, fuck these systems, we're going to do our own thing. But it's like, I wish the dots had been connected more, and you could have even gone further with that idea of like, no, fuck American systems. And so it feels like it's set up for like these payoffs for these themes in like a season 3 or in Men of Tomorrow, whatever the next Superman movie is, or whatever next is coming for these characters or these ideas continuing with in the DCU, wherever they may reoccur again. But I just wish we had gotten a little bit more of it here and connected those dots a little bit more. It really ultimately feels like, and this is just my speculation, but James Gunn has talked about how he wrote this show, Peacemaker. He wrote Peacemaker Season 2, Superman, and Creature Commando kind of all at the same time. And now we know he's basically jumping right into Men of Tomorrow. So he's been on these like writing tears and then also having to direct and, you know, navigate all this stuff all at once. And it really feels like this season was a first draft. It feels like, or even like a second draft of like, this is something that he like wrote out, and because he's a strong writer, like there's a really strong through line. There's some really good, there's like tons of really good ideas. You know, a first draft for any other writer who's like an earlier writer or beginning writer, like it would be even rougher than this. But like, since he's a good writer, he can kind of create a really good arc on his first draft, but it needed him to go back through and be like, all right, there are 10 great ideas here. Let's whittle it down to 8. You know, let's whittle it down to 7. And then, you know, make that the plot here, really drill deeper into those ideas and then have them reflect the character arcs better. Because the character arcs are great. I almost have no notes on the character arcs, but you needed more connective tissue and like more time to spend drilling into those character arcs within the plot beats that we are given, rather than just jumping all around and doing a bunch. Like, hell, what would we fucking doing with the whole, Eagly plot, where, like, he's the prime eagle or whatever. Like, I like that Eagly got some stuff to do, and, again, it speaks to, like, Gunn's work that, like, there's, like, a really great, like, he's thinking about every character. Even Eagly's a character. He's getting some stuff here. But, like, plot-wise, we didn't need any of it. And you could have folded, if you wanted to do something with Eagly, you could have folded that more into, like, the Earth X plot or something like that, in a more natural way. It's like one less idea and focus in on the plot that you actually, like, will give you to the meat of the matter and tie that into it, instead of, like, having 10 plot ideas. And I really think that that's the big detriment of this season. Because, again, really great stuff. Kind of touching back on some other character things. I spoke about Harcourt. I loved her arc here. I liked I forget her name, but the cyborg lady kind of turning on Argus here. Again, fuck the system sort of thing. Adebayo's arc. Again, missing scenes. Because I love the setup with her wife in the beginning of the season. And I love this scene at the end of this season with her wife being like, hey, you know, I love you, but sometimes we just have different paths. Like, I get that. I feel like that's a very true story, and it's a very real story, and it's something that's not talked about enough. Like, usually you just have, like, big fights of people like, I don't love you anymore, we're doing different things. Like, no, these people still love each other, but they have different paths they're going on. And I think that's a really great arc, but there's a scene missing in the middle where we just haven't returned to Adebayo and her wife at all this season. It was in the beginning, it was in the end, and we needed at least one scene just touching upon it in the middle here, but we didn't. And as a result, like, I'm so removed from the emotion of this scene, of what it's giving me. Like, it's so well performed, so well done, but I'm missing a scene in between to have, like, made me feel like I'm tracking this arc and feel like I care, so that when we get this excellent payoff and this excellent excellent setup, it feels like there's been some evolution, instead of it just returning to, I'm like, oh yeah, I should feel something for this too. But I don't because I just haven't been clocking it this whole season. And it just needed at least one scene in the middle of the season between these two characters that would have felt like it really made that excellent ending here really land, because it is so good. It's a really great scene, but it just didn't evolve enough it didn't earn that final scene. And I think that's kind of disappointing. The other thing, too, is that we set up at the end here, we set up two things. We set up Checkmate. So Chris, with everyone, joins Checkmate. I think that was a lot of fun, though I did wonder a couple things. First off, why is Tim Meadows there? Again, I buy that Tim Meadows might join them. you know, we saw that the guy that he was like joking about and making fun of, like he vomited on a stripper sort of thing, like he got killed by the fucking candy cane land little munchkin things, which are really funny, and they were blowing up with glitter. It was great. So I could buy him being like, oh, Argus doesn't care about me, I'm gonna go and join these guys. But again, missing scene. He's just kind of there now. Like I needed a scene where like he spoke to Harcourt or someone, and be like, hey, this Rick Flag's being a fucking weirdo. I want to bounce with you guys, but we don't get that scene. So he's just kind of here. Same thing with Judo Master. Though Judo Master I buy a little bit more given what we got with him last episode. So liked I could buy that a little bit more. Though it was funny that he was in his Judo Master outfit and no one else was. It was just like, I get it, Judo Master's never out of his outfit, but it just looked so weird with him in his outfit and no one else. Was just kind of funny. You could have at least had Peacemaker in his outfit. But nope, not at all. So we're setting up Checkmate. Again, it seems like either that'll be explored in a Peacemaker Season 3 or it's getting its own spin-off show with Peacemaker that'll just be involved in it. Curious to see where that's going to go. I'm excited about it. But again, hopefully it'll explore some of the ideas here. And then we also get set up Chris being abandoned on that Salvation planet. And I was here thinking that Salvation was being set up for a Men of Tomorrow storyline. That was going to be something that was going to go on in that movie. And it still might be the case, but it very much also clearly seems like we're setting it up for being where Peacemaker's at. And it just, again, it feels a little at odds with like, hey, we just set up this Checkmate thing, but now the first thing they're gonna have to do is get Peacemaker back instead of like having a fresh start. And I kind of would have rather them have a fresh start and have the Salvation thing being its own separate thing, or keep the Salvation thing the main focus and maybe the Checkmate thing kind of comes up a little bit later. I don't know. It just felt like we're setting up two different tracks here. And I'm like, okay, I want one of them picked. And Salvation seems like it'll be a great thing for Men of Tomorrow, or something else to pick up that like maybe gets touched upon in a future Peacemaker season, but is really something for something else, like the Lex Luthor of it all, and the Superman of it all, and the Argus of it all. And then the Checkmate have its own thing. But again, it works character-wise for Rick Flag, and again, Rick Flag's just become a huge fucking scumbag, which again reads correct, even if I don't fully track the arc. But yeah, it just was kind of an extra thing going on. So again, that's kind of where I ended on the season. Overall, I think this season was fantastic character work from James Gunn, which is almost always the case. And I think there are so many great ideas in this season. Like every single one of the ideas for this season, for the most part, was a banger. But I think he needed to whittle some of it down and really hone in on exactly what the plot was. Because like none of these were bad ideas, but they were too many. And you could have just picked your favorites. You needed to kill a few darlings or save them for another season or for another movie, rather than trying to do them all at once, because it was just a little bit too much here. But that's ultimately my feelings on Peacemaker's season finale and season 2 as a whole. But what did you think? I'd love to hear all your thoughts down below. But beyond all that, I hope you, my friends, as always, live long and prosper.